I'll just welcome everyone and welcome you, Prisha Mosley. I'm so happy that you made time to join us today on Outspoken. I'm Naomi Wolf, and I reached out to Prisha Mosley because I saw her on my X feed talking about challenges with detransitioning, and we'll get into that. But before we do, Prisha Mosley is a detransitioner and a mother. She has testified all across one country and helped change laws in the majority of the states where trans medical abuse is banned for minors. Wow. She sued her doctors in 2023 and became the first detransitioner to be found to have a case with merit. That's a big historic first. She's testified before the FTC and spoken at Capitol Hill. Well, thank you for everything, but also I'm just speaking person to person. I'm so sorry you've had to deal with all of this in your life.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that you wanted to talk with me and help share my story. It has been a lot for sure, but the reason that I talk about it and try to share it is because I know for certain now that I am not alone. What happened to me has happened to and is continuing to happen to lots of young people and people who are mentally ill, and not a single one deserves it. So I'm here.
So sorry. And you're a very young woman, right? How old are you, if you don't
I'm
mind?
27.
Oh gosh. Well, let's start kind of way back. Why don't you start sort of at the beginning for people who are unfamiliar with your story, and we can work up to the more difficult stuff if you want. It's all completely up to you. Were you a minor? I'm assuming you were, but I really just don't know. Were you a minor when the whole, changed genders journey, quote unquote, began for you?
Yes, this actually happened to me quite a few years ago too, before there were any quote unquote gender critical people or TERFs speaking out about it. 10 or 11 years ago in North Carolina, as a matter of fact. But I began to identify as trans at around 15 or 16. I was online on Tumblr.com, which is not so popular anymore, and I was like in communities talking about anorexia and stuff. And a bunch of trans activists who were adults, most of them also identifying as trans themselves, came into the little group I was in and convinced us that our suffering was actually because, not because we were fat, but we were born in entirely the wrong bodies. So, I fell for this lie along with a lot of my peers. And I took this to my doctors, and my doctors, instead of telling me that these were delusional internet beliefs, the same way they said that I wasn't really fat and that I needed food to live, and affirmed reality and things like that, they did the opposite with my trans identity. In fact, I had been seeing the therapist who I'm now suing for a number of years, and had talked to her about the fact that I had been through a sexual assault when I was 14, and a pregnancy that resulted in a miscarriage, all of which really divorced me from womanhood and wanting to be a woman and feeling safe to be a woman. I thought that it was a dangerous curse, I suppose. And instead of dissuading me out of these beliefs, I was affirmed and told that my problems would go away, my mental health diagnoses would disappear if I transitioned. In fact, I was fed a bunch of pseudoscience, like about how I had a male brain and a female body, when in fact I just had a traumatized brain and a female body, and just needed ethical and evidence based care.
Oh my,
But what happened to me instead was a scandal and an ongoing experiment.
so sorry. And you were so young. And so this was in North Carolina?
Yeah, isn't that wild?
Well, I mean, yes and no. It's literally happening everywhere. And it was 10 or 11 years ago, so quite sort of early in this curve. It's so interesting to me. I don't know if you know, there's no reason you should. You're a totally different generation. But my first book was about anorexia, and I was anorexic exactly at the same age, 12, 13, 14, young 15, mid teenager. And It's so interesting to me what you've just shared, Ms. Mosley, that it was a group of, I'm guessing mostly girls, maybe girls and boys, talking about anorexia that was the target of adults saying, oh, no, 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 your anorexia isn't due to, all the things that we know it could be due to now, including patriarchy, all the reasonable reasons girls don't want to turn into women because of what you just described. So rightly, it's a challenge and in many ways a burden to take on an adult woman's body, vulnerability, pregnancy, sexual assault, trauma, judgment, etc. But it sounds like those adults targeted already vulnerable young women and maybe young men who are already questioning their bodies. And you were just so eloquent in pointing out the contradiction. Everyone knew by then that to say to an anorexic, that you say to anorexic women or women with, teens with body dysmorphia or boys, right? You're perfect the way you were born. It's fine to gain weight. You need food. This is a dysmorphia, that you think there's something wrong with you, that you have to be 98 pounds and living on 500 calories a day. And you're right that affirming that would lead to literally people starving to death. But you're saying they did the exact opposite with you. Yes, I'm saying two different things. A, do you think it's weird and notable that adults found this group of young girls and maybe boys who are already questioning their bodies for a totally different reason and kind of exploited that? Well, I'd like your thoughts about that first.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly predatory, but to be honest with you, who else but someone who hates themselves and hates their body, or is a child, or vulnerable, or very mentally ill, would this idea of erasing yourself and becoming someone new through medication and surgery appeal to? You know what I mean? But as a matter of fact, you can like go on Google right now and type in something like anorexia and gender dysphoria or something like that, and find scientifically written articles about how trans identified children will starve themselves to not grow breasts because they're dysphoric, and that's really why, trying to pass off eating disorders. And they'll say the same thing about binge eating disorders. They're trying to hide their body shape and that they're masculine or feminine with a binge eating disorder. And this is just pseudoscience. That's not how an eating disorder works.
Bizarre, because like literally till 15 years ago, there was a very developed feminist analysis of, eating disorders, especially among girls and women, tying it to patriarchy, and not having that pat excuse, you're just born in the wrong body. I mean, when I was 13, if someone had said, oh, you're starving yourself to death because you think you're a boy, or you'll be happier as a boy and you've got a male brain, I might believe it if that person was authoritative enough.
Yeah, especially from a doctor.
Especially from a doctor, exactly. Okay, that's really shocking. So North Carolina, are you in the research triangle? Where Duke and UNC?
Yeah. I'm Moses Cone is named in my lawsuit.
Okay.
In relation to like Duke and UNC. And
Right.
they, I heard at least 10 years ago when I was going through it, they were transitioning like the youngest in the country, patients as young as at least 3.
How appalling. I mean, the reason I mention that, you understand exactly why I ask, but for people who may not be familiar, that's a quote unquote research triangle where billions of dollars in, federal and other money, creepy money, goes into experimenting on things like, well, coronavirus bats, but that's another story. But also, it's an area where if there's very early experimentation, with children or minors about transitioning from one gender to another, it's not surprising that it would happen there very early, ahead of the curve. So now, I'm so sorry that happened to you. So when your doctor, when your psychiatrist, right, or psychologist said you've got a male brain, which is a lunatic thing to say. There are differences between male and female brains, but you don't get a male brain if you're born in a female body. You just don't, right? So when they were saying that to you, what happened then? And were your parents supportive, not supportive, worried? What was the role of that?
Well, the person who said that was actually the pediatric endocrinologist. And my parents were not privy to this for quite a while, basically until I was starting the testosterone, because I was being taken to see a nutritionist for the eating disorder. And my eating plan had gotten me to gain some weight such that I restarted my period after stopping it for a while from the not eating, because of the trauma. So I started my period again, and I brought up this stuff that I heard on the internet. I wanted to be a boy. I hated my body. I hated my periods. Things that it made sense for a girl in my position to say. And then the pediatric endocrinologist actually started meeting with me in the nutritionist office behind my parents' back. So they didn't know for a while. Um, and then we got sent to a lady to get a letter of recommendation to start the testosterone. And this woman blackmailed my parents with threats of my suicide. And she said in front of me to them, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? Which, further made me feel like I was suicidal because my brain and my body were mismatched and I needed this medicine to fix it. Like I'm telling you, I literally thought that I had a disease, a condition, like an intersex condition that needed to be treated with medicine.
Oh my gosh.
And so they blackmailed my parents. And at 17, I was put on testosterone. And then just a year later, I had both of my healthy breasts amputated.
I'm so sorry, God. I'm just trying to process everything you're saying to me, Ms. Mosley. I mean, it also sounds like the endocrinologist was kind of vulturishly, lurking around the treatment of your eating disorder, waiting to pounce on you. So there's a whole kind of chain of people waiting to pounce on an already vulnerable girl who has an eating disorder, which is,
Yeah.
very common. So then the other thing I'm noting is that sentence, would you rather have a, living son or a dead daughter? Many people have heard that it's like a script, right? And I'm sure you know that better than I, but how appalling that your parents were told that, how evil. And so then your doctors put you on testosterone, and then you amputated your health, or they amputated your healthy breasts. I'm so, so sorry. So do you mind my asking, when you were put on testosterone, and this is in the middle of you like developing as a teenager, which is already lots of hormonal changes and lots of psychological changes and lots of getting used to your body changing and figuring out your relationship to the same sex and the opposite sex and your peer group, all of that, right? Not to mention your trauma from your child sexual assault, which is a very, very real thing, which stays with us forever. What did the testosterone do to you? Did it make you feel better, worse, different? Nothing? What happened?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It had negative effects, of course, effects that are permanent and that I'm living with lifelong. But some of the immediate effects felt good, I would say. Um, I I immediately felt more confident.
Hmm.
I felt like I had more of an ability to look people in the eye. I
Wow.
felt stronger, and I became stronger. And
Physically
those
stronger or emotionally stronger?
Certainly not emotionally, physically,
Uh,
like bigger and stronger. My shoulders grew. I now have a lot of pain in my shoulders. And I even got stretch marks from like them growing so big and so fast. And my hips are narrow. I'm like disproportionate and have pain from that, and muscle and joint pain from the way it affects those things. But, the way it made me feel immediately was good and empowering. And that's what was advertised to me. I was like sold the idea that I could become a man who these bad things never happened to, and that they would never happen to me again, because now I was big and strong. And I got sucked away in the affirmation, which also felt good, being told that I looked bigger and stronger and handsome and I was looking healthier and doing the right thing, even though it was all lies. It felt good. But, eventually that wore away quite quickly, actually. The literal high of testosterone, too, because again, it's an anabolic steroid. And I felt like I could get up and go. That wore off pretty quickly, and I was left with the side effects. the first physical change I had was actually to my genitals. A lot of detransitioned women have a hard time talking about it, but um, it causes growth in the clitoris that's incredibly painful. Um, and doesn't go away and causes issues with wearing certain types of underwear and sitting certain ways. Like, it's a big issue. And equally bad as that is the atrophy, which is not just vaginal atrophy or dryness, it's like full blown pelvic atrophy. There's like incontinence problems and pain and problems with my posture and how I stand and hold my muscles because it's all like weak and broken down there. And I haven't been able to restore that, years later. And um, yeah, I don't have the energy levels I had that, before I took testosterone. Now that I've taken it, I feel lethargic and like I'm not healing as fast or going as fast. My voice is permanently impaired. Not only, does it sound weird, but I can't sing anymore. And I was like specifically deceived about this. My singing voice was very important to me. It was one of the only things I liked about myself when I was in the darkest depths of hating myself. I knew I had a good voice, and my doctors told me that it would just be in the male range, but I can't sing anymore. And I can't even scream like for help if something goes wrong. I could just scream at the top of my lungs right now and you would not know. I'd just be like looking like I was yawning or making a crazy face like you wouldn't know. It's horrible.
Oh my God. I don't even know where to begin. I'm so sorry. I mean, this is just a litany of mutilations and harms.
It's a lot more than that too. I have insulin resistance. My liver is twice the size it's supposed to be. I have high blood pressure and high cholesterol. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Your hormones, your endocrine system, it affects everything, and everything is affected by the hormones. And it's just been like a cascading effect on the entirety of my health.
Jeez. I'm just trying to process what you're saying. I mean, one of the things that comes up for me is that, even as some voices are trying to call attention to some of the harms of this sort of mutilation surgery and process, you're naming side effects that I've never heard of. But it makes sense because, as you just said, you know, hormones don't exist in a vacuum. It's not like a switch, like, oh, female, male, male, female. That's not it. As you said, the hormonal system, the endocrine system modulates everything and is interconnected with absolutely everything, mood and blood pressure and brain function, all.
And a lot of the issues I'm describing, like the insulin resistance and stuff like that, women with PCOS have. And a common association with PCOS is just having high androgens in your body, high testosterone. And I do have cysts on my ovaries and PCOS now as a result
Geez.
of taking
Oh,
testosterone. So my
geez.
doctors should have known I would have had the results of high testosterone in my female body. But instead, they told me that everything that was happening to me and the weird side effects that I was having and all that I was going through, they called it male puberty.
So they narrated to you that it was just something you were going through on your journey to being a, handsome, strong, healthy man,
Yeah.
who would live happily ever after. Did they have any reason at that point to believe that that was the case? Like, there had never been a generation of transitioners in this way that they could look at, with long-term studies, to my knowledge.
I
I
mean,
mean,
humans can't change sex. Humans are mammals, and mammals are, non-hermaphroditic and sexually dimorphic and not interchangeable. So,
right,
I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I do grasp that now just by becoming an adult.
right.
And on top of that, there's no cosmetic alteration that can treat any type of mental health condition. And that's what they were offering, cosmetic,
Right.
solutions to mental health problems.
Well, God, I'm so sorry. Geez, I mean, just what you've described. First of all, thank you for your like courage. None of these things is easy to talk about, I'm sure. And so many bad things happen to women's genitals that, shame is used to keep us from talking about. So it's, very honorable of you to put out there that the harms, these intimate harms that you have sustained, and other transitioners and detransitioners have sustained and will be sustaining. The other side effects are just so systemic and horrific. Like, basically, they gave you a lifetime of serious health conditions, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yeah, literally. Just because I used to hate myself.
And let's talk about what was happening to you then, like socially and emotionally, as you, I guess, your appearance changed and you looked more quote unquote masculine. Did you take on a new identity as a man? And what was that like? And is it easier? Like, was there, what did you learn from that? What was that experience? Did it solve it?
Yeah. I mean, I, did the living as a man thing for quite a number of years. And I did find that, people would look at me in the eye more, take me more seriously and stuff like that. But it was never worth the compounding health issues, and not to mention maintaining a constant fantasy or delusion about myself and having to hide like my past and the fact that I used to be a girl and now I was a boy and I had to change sex to live, and like that's weird. Like I could never fully connect with people, because there was something about myself that I had to hide to stay alive,
Yeah.
according to my doctors. It was just like putting on a mask that made me feel safer, but it took away my ability to connect, and now I can't take it off. I still look different and I still sound different, not like myself, not how I remember, not like my mother or my sister. Um, yeah, so it's like a permanent mask.
So you felt like you couldn't tell people you met as a man that you had been a woman once?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was unsafe. I was, I didn't identify as trans, especially having done this so long ago. I was stealth. I wanted to be a man and live as a man. I thought I had a medical condition wherein my male body accidentally got turned into a female body, but I was just trying to be safe and a man. And I thought that's what was going to come, and it just never did.
I understand. Wow. How awful. So did you have, I'm sorry to ask, but it's personal, you don't have to answer, but did you have secondary sex characteristics like facial hair? And so you pretty much looked like a man, is the bottom.
Yeah, I would say I passed. Most people called me he. I used the male bathroom mostly because I didn't want to make women uncomfortable in the female bathroom, because I am a woman and still know how women feel about that. But I yeah, I had secondary male characteristics and dressed as a man and looked like one. So yeah, I was on testosterone for a number of years. So
And when you say you needed drugs to survive, I mean, this is something else that I feel is not properly communicated. Your doctors told you had to keep taking testosterone in order to continue to live as a man. So it's like a lifetime of dependency on these drugs and hormones. Is that correct?
yeah, and that's whether or not you get off, because, if you listen to the doctors, you have to keep transitioning and, stay on a dose, at least a lower dose to maintain, the virilizing effects or whatever. But then I've detransitioned and I don't want to do that now. And my whole endocrine system is broken due to being overloaded with a hormone. And so now I have to rely on the pharmacy to fix that anyway. So like once they start you on this protocol, this routine of the HRT, the wrong sex hormones, it's like a lifelong thing.
So you had to take a natural, whatever, you're dependent on the doctors and pharma, testosterone to transition. And then when you detransition, you have to take a separate set of hormones because your endocrine system just doesn't function as a woman, even if you're not taking the male hormones anymore. Is that correct?
Yeah, like estrogen, progesterone, androgen blockers, etc.
What would what would happen if you didn't take all of those, if you don't mind my asking, right now as a woman?
I'm not really positive, and neither are any of the doctors, because again, this is an ongoing medical experiment.
Yes.
But when I wasn't taking my care of myself, I was in more pain. My facial hair grew out. Um, I weighed a lot more because of the insulin resistance, and my life was just a lot harder and worse.
When you were just like not taking any hormones at all. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I went a period when I detransitioned, and I couldn't find a doctor for a while who was willing to work with me. But I do have an ethical practitioner now who is helping me. But I mean, she has to be honest and does tell me that this is an experiment, and she's experimenting on me. But again, at
God,
least they're being straightforward with me and honest this time.
yeah. Holy cow. Well, I see why there's such a giant marketing push to get kids, especially, to go on this journey because it's something you can never get off of without going through, these horrible side effects that you're describing. So it's a giant boon to big pharma, taking perfectly healthy young people who are suffering, who need other kinds of care, and turning them into lifelong like pharma addicts, basically. But what made you, Ms. Mosley, decide to detransition when you finally did? When you did?
So, my partner, we aren't legally married because I have all kinds of legal trouble with my name change and all that, but he's my husband now, otherwise. But I met him when I moved here to Michigan, and after getting to know him for a while, I got to know and started babysitting his daughter, and she was just about 2 at the time. And despite the fact that I was wearing masculine clothes and I even had facial hair and everything, she started calling me mommy
Oh,
because she did not have a mom in her life at that time. And I suppose I just fell into that role, despite what I was afraid of being and thought I couldn't be. I She told me what I was, and I broke out of my delusion.
do you think she intuited that you were a biological woman underneath
Yeah,
it?
she knew. She knew.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, yeah.
But her dad didn't know
He
necessarily.
did know. He did know. I told him pretty shortly after we met because I was just trying to meet new people, and I was having being not sure about the transition and stuff like that.
Right. Was he initially freaked out that he might be attracted to someone he thought was a man?
No. I mean, I think we started out as just friends. He was showing me around a place I had never been. I had just left my trans-identifying fiance across the other side of the country, so I wasn't really looking for that at the time. But then we did grow to fall in love with each other, especially because I found out that he's, the best dad in the world.
Mm, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, did you feel like, I want to be with this man and he's heterosexual, so I want to be a woman? Or did you feel like he accepts me completely as I am, so I don't need to do all these other things, or something else, or some mixture?
It wasn't about him at all. It was about, the little girl who is now, my stepdaughter and all of that. She really did it for me.
Oh my God, that's so sweet. I'm sorry. That's a really, really moving story. How's she doing now?
Oh my gosh, she's great. She's 6 years old. It's so awesome. Yeah.
You've been
She
her
just,
mom for 4 years, right?
yes, yes. It's been amazing. I've loved to watch her grow. Crazy how fast that happens. And now I do have a biological son of my own, and that seems to be going by even faster.
So that's incredible. Congratulations. I mean, I thoroughly believe people should live however they want, but as a woman, it, it's really beautiful to hear that this role, body, whatever, which is so fraught with, scary things, especially when you're 12 or 13 or 14, that I don't want to say on the other side of it because it's a lifelong journey, right? But that you are the mother of two beautiful children and in a relationship, and, you have love and family and all those good things. So
Yeah, I'm really, really happy with how my life is now. And, I just wonder if my doctors just never thought that I would become healthy and well enough to want this for myself. Because, when I hated myself and I was afraid of my body and the world, I didn't want this. I never would have imagined it. But, finding ethical care, getting the help I needed for my trauma and stuff, uh, led me to want this.
How many in the transitioned community, right? Not detransitioned, just trans community, of people who were kind of solicited when they were minors. What percentage do you feel were kids or teens or whatever who were really just traumatized and
I
needed
mean, I
help?
haven't met a single person who identifies as trans who doesn't have some sort of sexual or familial trauma or something going on.
That's so interesting. That makes sense.
It wouldn't appeal to anyone else.
Well, there I want to gently push back. I mean, maybe, I was raped as a child, so
Oh, well,
maybe I'm not a good source because I totally identify, I too was anorexic and I too was like, I don't want this female body. It's more trouble than it's worth, like it makes you vulnerable. But I think one of the things I think is so unethical about the solicitation, especially of girls to transition, is that I think most girls, like at that vulnerable point, if they're told either you can menstruate every month and possibly be raped and always make 30% less than a man and possibly be beaten up and have to get pregnant or have to worry about getting pregnant, or there's this, you can be a strong, handsome, healthy man. I don't think it's only traumatized girls who might be receptive to that, because being a woman is complicated, right?
yeah. I mean, I suppose you could say there's some trauma in growing up as a girl at all in this day and age. So I definitely hear you.
What what now that you're a woman in your presentation and identity, and I just want to say for the record, you're a lovely woman and I think your voice is lovely. So I hope I hope that's becomes, part of how you experience yourself again. But what is it like being a woman now that you've had the choice not to be a woman?
Well, I mean, I guess the reality is that I was always a woman since the moment I turned 18. I've been, a female human adult. I was just living for the beginning of my adult life and my teenage years as a woman who hated herself and
Mm.
who disguised herself as a man and who took anabolic steroids and who had surgery because she didn't like who she was and because she was traumatized, but I've never lived as a man because my doctors couldn't actually offer that for me. But living as a woman who accepts herself and loves herself is wonderful.
That's so interesting. So you're saying, which is kind of obvious, even when your presentation was "I'm a man, my name is a man, I'm dressed as a man," you were obviously still a woman. And right, I get what you're saying. Wow, that's very honest. So when you say your doctors couldn't do that, are you? I don't want to get into your personal stuff if you don't want to go there, but are you saying they couldn't create male genitals for you for whatever reason?
I mean, they couldn't change my sex. They couldn't turn me into a man in any way. Like, a male is more than just his genitals or the way he dresses or presents himself or a voice or a look or anything like that. They couldn't change my chromosomes or the way I think or, the way I was conceived, which was female.
Right, right. Well, we've got a lovely comment here from Shauna McKellar. I'm sorry, Miss Mosley, I'm just getting teary. So your story is just so moving, and I mean, it's just the fact that your stepdaughter was called you mom is just so moving. But thank you, Ms. Mosley, for sharing your story. I'm so thrilled that you've been able to find ethical care, and most of all, that you've been able to find love in so many ways. Your journey sounds like it has been awful, but you found grace and peace as your true self. Bless you. That's really beautiful. So, and I always try with a subject like this, Ms. Mosley, not to push it in either direction. Do you know what I mean? Because just like teens can get love bombed in a way that you've acknowledged is kind of validating and addictive by the transitioning establishment or industry. I feel like sometimes there are, and I'm not saying this about this nice commentator, Shauna McKellar, but there is the danger, right, that a detransitioner gets love bombed by other demographics for other reasons. And I just want to love bomb you for just being who you are, right? And, making the best sense of your life that you possibly can. But having said that, well, so many things. Do you feel like, I'm sorry, I wish that I could have followed that train of thought till the end, but
You're okay.
yeah, no, it's kind of overwhelming, right? Because I think I'm reacting also very strongly to what you just said, which is no matter how forceful this discourse is of you can transition, here are the hormones, here are the clothing, gender's a construct. You've been there, you've been in the front lines of this whole journey. And I guess as a woman, I'm very, very moved. You're saying, all the way through, I was still a woman. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think that's also what's getting me because, and you're not even allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Someone like me who hasn't transitioned is definitely not allowed to say, hey, there's something about being a woman that is deep and innate and profound. And if you put on makeup and wear high heels, it doesn't mean you're a woman. Could you talk more about that feeling that you're a woman that doesn't change even when the world says that you're a man?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I didn't feel it or believe in it back then. This is something I realize and understand now. I didn't realize how deep in denial of myself and my pain and trauma I was, or that I was just running away. But I mean, looking back, everything I did was the way a woman does it. Men tend to externalize their pain, whereas women tend to internalize their pain. As you can see with people who identify often as trans, a lot of the females hurt themselves and a lot of the males hurt others. And these innate characteristics, these things like also from a feminist perspective, you could talk about male entitlement and the males feeling like they can demand to become women and enter our spaces and stuff like that. That's male entitlement. That doesn't just go away. That's in fact the reason it's happening. These innate things about us that make us male and female, they don't go away and they can't be changed. And everything else is just a personality trait.
Wow, that's so profound. Oh my God. Well, along those lines, I meant to ask you, testosterone, I mean, hormonal imbalances in either direction can make people completely crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like even non-transitioning people, like PMS is a real thing, murderous PMS is a real thing, postpartum depression is a real thing, right? These are all very real. When you were on testosterone, did you ever feel like very, very, very angry, or did you feel like have difficulty managing your aggression?
Yeah, I had a lot of anger and aggression problems. I was really quick to anger and to be aggravated. And I would even have rage sometimes and like blackout. But I would just hurt myself. It was really bad. And, despite all of this and my self-harm and stuff getting worse, my doctors did not tell me to get off of it or even lower the dose.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was just transition.
oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Like anabolic steroids, there is something called like roid rage. I mean,
Yeah.
we know that people can, have unmanageable anger when they're even on like asthma medications that are anabolic steroids. All right, well, let's go back to your current life. I reached out to you because you were talking about having given birth. Is that something you do want to talk about? It's completely up to you.
Yeah, I could talk about it a little bit. I wanted to share some about that more because I am feeling more able to. I gave birth to my son about a year and a half ago, uh, and he is the best ever. I can't believe that I could have a baby still. It's like literally a miracle,
What a
in
miracle.
every sense of the word. But I was not able to deliver him naturally. I had to have a C-section, which I really didn't like because it's another surgery and it was very traumatic. But my hip bones were not wide enough apart from my development being interrupted by testosterone. So I had to have a C-section, and then, of course, I couldn't breastfeed. But what was a lot worse than that, uh, was that I had really bad surgical complications in my chest.
God.
My surgeon did not take out all of the breast tissue.
Oh God.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, milk came in, but he grafted my nipples. Um, so they're just decorative, and I couldn't let it out. And that is by far the worst agony I have ever experienced. And it did not just happen to me, it happened to my baby who was wronged and robbed too. He was crying for milk inside of my chest, and it was right there, and I
Oh
couldn't do anything.
God. Did no one warn you that this might happen or give you any treatment for managing it, any practice to manage it?
I had no idea this was going to happen. I went to therapy for months while I was pregnant to deal with the fact that my chest is numb and I wouldn't be able to feel him when I hold him. But instead, I had on top of the numbness this severe agony, like nothing I have ever experienced before, and it made me want to die. I have no idea how I survived. But I binded my chest again, and I scored up cabbage leaves and put it in there. I tried to take a medicine called cabergoline, but it made me suicidal, worse. And I ended up just like overdosing on Sudafed to dry up all of the liquids inside of my body.
Overdosing on what?
Like Sudafed, like
Were
stuffy nose medicine.
were you self-medicating at this point? Did you have any guidance from like La Leche or
My midwife was helping me. I told her about the issue, but I mean, when I showed her my chest, like her eyes like popped out of her head. She didn't know what to do.
well, are you I'm not trying to doubt you, but it was that, are you sure that was her reaction, or maybe she was just like, I don't know what to do. I've never run into this before.
I She told me about the Sudafed and the
Okay, so she told
binding them. Yeah.
God. I just want to say for the record that mastitis, which is when the nipple's infected so that women who are nursing can't secrete the milk, is one of the most agonizing things that the human body can go through. It absolutely intolerable. And it sounds like you had a version of like surgical mastitis that there's no cure for, really. Did it go away? I guess you had to wean your baby, right?
Yeah, I could have gone septic, and all of that. My lymph nodes got swollen, like
Oh,
everything was so messed up from
oh,
this.
oh, these monsters. I can't stand it. Like, I'm sorry. I've never cried this much in an interview. Trust me. I guess the thing that's so extraordinary to me is anyone who knows about childbirth and lactation, like, how could they not have foreseen that this could be a problem? Like, I don't even know if it's possible to remove all the mammary tissue, right? Your mammary tissue goes, in near your lymph nodes, under your armpits, in deep into your chest wall. Like, how could these surgeons? It's such a Frankenstein approach to the human body. Like, how could they think they solved the problem of a female body wanting to nurse when the baby is nearby and they've just given birth. Their bodies are going to make milk. Their bodies are going to go through the process of making milk, whether they have physical breasts left or not. These godlike surgeons have not solved the problem that that's a female body and that there's a baby, and that millennia of evolution have created this symbiotic system in which your body's going to respond when your baby is near you and wanting to nurse. Oh my God, this is so horrific. So you had to wean your baby at that point. You couldn't nurse him, right?
Yeah. Thankfully, and I'm so like blessed from the bottom of my heart for this. Four women got together and donated and organized breast milk for me. One woman like gathered it all and brought it to me, so that my baby was able to have breast milk. And I'm just so grateful for those women. I still talk to them and text them, and I will probably for the rest of my life. I'm very grateful, for what they did, and that's like the
Oh,
sisterhood and womanhood and things that I was never taught about. I was taught about how womanhood was scary and bad and dangerous, and I could escape into being a man, and not told about the beautiful women that might be in my future giving milk from their bodies, their hard work, their strength and love, to my baby, just because they thought it was wrong what happened to me.
oh my God, what a story. So your son was able to tolerate their milk. So they were like, it's like the 19th century. They were being wet nurses for you. This is what women used to do for moms who could not nurse. Wow.
Exactly like that. Yeah.
Wow. Good for them. That is
Amazing.
That is amazing. And it is, I mean, people don't know if they've never nursed, it is hard work. Those ladies were expressing a lot to just, give your son enough. And did he grow and thrive? Is he bigger and healthy?
Yeah. He's like in some of the things, he's in the 90th percentile. He's pretty big, growing up big and strong. So he's doing well. Yeah.
Thank God. Is there more you wanted to say about the experience of giving birth, or have you summarized, like, I mean, it's just so traumatic in every way, but like even the thought that your hips are artificially narrow because your development as a woman was interrupted by these doctors. And so now people have to have C-sections if they're going to have babies at all, right? That's so, it's so like mind-blowingly A, predictable, and B, aberrant and monstrous. But I don't want to put in your mouth. What is it you want people to know? Is it like a new round of the horrors that await, people who have gone on this transitioning journey if they choose to have children later?
Well, I mean, I think, I was never supposed to have my baby. I was never supposed to heal this much or want to have a family or feel this safe. And on top of that, I was being, they were trying to schedule me for a hysterectomy before I moved away from the hospital that I'm suing, where I lived like near with my parents and stuff.
Why did they want to schedule you for a hysterectomy?
They typically start recommending it after the woman or girl has been on testosterone for 5 years, because they do know what it does to your uterus and your vagina and the atrophy and all of that. So they tell you to just cut it out.
Oh my God. And I'm sure they don't tell those 17-year-old kids,
that's 5 years down the line.
We're going to cut your uterus out and you'll never be able to have children. So Daniel Hawaii, a good friend of ours, he said congratulations earlier. I shared at the wrong moment. He meant to say congratulations about the birth of your son. And now he's saying praise God about all the healing you're doing. Wow. That's so it's like, what is the word? It's almost like a lost leader. It's like, ooh, get on this train. There's no downside. And then 5 years in, they're like, oh, we just have to take your uterus,
Yeah. Again, it's like, the things I was saying about the confidence and the strength, that's what's advertised to you.
Right. Wow, you're getting lots of compliments. Our good friend Roscoe says, Prisha, you've recovered more than most detransitioners I've seen. And then he said, more than any, really. And I'm sure everyone's on a journey and everyone's doing their best. And it's hard enough to be male or female, as it is. But I do think you're just such a heroic example of someone finding your truth or sticking to your truth.
Thank you. Well, I am trying to be an example, and it certainly takes years. Like y'all can Google Prisha Mosley and see some pretty not cute pictures of me. So it takes a while to recover from being totally betrayed by your medical professionals and poisoned and losing body parts. It takes time to heal from that. It really does. But I'm trying to give an example of how living a good life, working with someone ethical, and most of all, being honest, lead to healing and health.
God. How are your parents doing now? Have they managed to kind of hang in there with all the changes in your life, or?
They were having their own mental health struggles at the same time I was when my doctors came in and stole their consent. And all of that is still being worked out. But as far as my transition, I don't blame them. I feel like they were manipulated and blackmailed. And frankly, they needed help too. And instead, their daughter was experimented on. It was just a total mess, and I don't blame them for it.
I mean, I'm just thinking as you're sharing your story and your family story, like how many of these cases, right, which there's such an industry now to elicit, could be healed or helped with, trauma therapy and family therapy, right? And just safety. And it's like the other thing that I'm feeling is someone as traumatized as you were as a teenager, to introduce these intimate, difficult sexual issues, with long-term consequences into your school, into your doctor's office, into your therapist's office, and, creepily lurking behind your eating disorders counselor. It's so unsafe. I mean, I think about this as a lot as someone who was raped in childhood. School needs to be safe. Your doctor needs to be safe. Your parents need to be safe. Home needs to be safe. And this whole discourse introduces so much like grasping treachery and lies and commodification. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It should be a safe place and not a place where, frankly, as it is now, people are being groomed into harming themselves, groomed into joining a community that doesn't really care about them and is full of people who are unwell and not getting the ethical care that they deserve to receive.
Right. Oh my gosh, Prisha. Ms. Mosley, we've run out of time, sadly. I could talk to you for hours, and I hope you'll come back and share whatever you want to. Do you feel like you've covered the main things you wanted to bring to the audience today, or is there anything else you want to share?
Oh, no, thank you. I'm really grateful for your time.
Well, what would you like people to take away? What do you plan to do now? And how do people find you? How do they help you if there's a mission that you're on that, you want help with?
Thank you for asking me that. I'm Prisha Mosley, spelled the way right there, on pretty much all of my social media. I'm the most active on X. I do have a donor box link in my bio. I'll share it every once in a while when I'm going travel to testify and stuff like that. It's expensive to get the plane tickets and stay in the hotels, but real change is happening, and I think more is coming in 2026. So just sharing what I say too. So that other detransitioners or people who continue to identify as trans don't feel like they're alone with their complications. I think that would help too.
Oh my God, absolutely. Well, I hate to let you go, but I have to let you go. Thank you so much. And people can find you on X at Prisha Mosley?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I really encourage it is expensive to testify all the places that Ms. Mosley is testifying. So if you can afford to shoot her Give, Send, Go, or what is it, GoFundMe?
Donor box.
A donor okay, go to donor box, is that right?
It's right on my bio on X.
Okay, go to her bio on X. If you can afford to send her some money, I encourage you to do so, because you do want her voice to be heard. And we're getting Lots of nice comments. Love you, moms. I love that so much. I hate to let you go. You've given us so much inspiration, so much to think about. I hope, as we say in my tradition, refuah shlema, which means a complete healing. I wish it for you, your family, the world, everyone. But you've done so much to heal not just yourself, but others in your family. Thank you so much. I'm going to now, Ms. Mosley, say goodbye to you because I have to thank our sponsor. Thank you so much. God bless you and take care. Okay. Oh my God. What a story. It's hard for me to even gather myself and gather my thoughts, but I really want to thank a couple of people and tell you about a couple of things. One of them is this: if you take a drive through any major city, hush up, Loki, everything's okay. After sunset, you will notice something strange, that there are dark windows and empty offices. Right now, 1 in 5 commercial buildings in America is sitting vacant, and nearly $1 trillion in real estate loans are going to come due this year. If those buildings stay empty, the banks take the hit. And those are the same banks where your retirement savings likely sit. There's a new free report called The Ghost Tower Signal that breaks it all down. It uncovers 7 early warning signs that showed up before every major crash since 1929. All 7 are active again right now. This won't make the evening news, but it could help you protect your savings from what's coming. Download it free at cloutgold.com. That's cloutgold.com, cloutgold.com, or call 855-803-GOLD to get your copy mailed to you. Cloutgold.com or 855-803-GOLD. You really want to do this, you guys. You want to diversify. As I often say, Brian and I first started talking about investing in gold nearly 5 years ago. And if we had, we would have nearly quintupled our investment by now. We also want to thank the Oxford Club, our new sponsor, and we want to tell you about Washington's 2-tiered system. I want to ask you, have you ever noticed how Washington seems to play by one set of rules and everyday Americans are stuck with another? For decades, there's been a 2-tier financial system in this country. The political class and their donors get access to the best opportunities, to private deals, special investments, insider advantages, and ordinary Americans who are not privileged that way, they're told to stick with the same retirement options, to earn next to nothing, and to hope inflation doesn't wipe them out. That wasn't an accident. That, in my view, was policy. But here's what's changed. Under President Trump, that system finally got challenged. With Executive Order 14330, President Trump opened the door for everyday Americans to have access to investment opportunities previously reserved for the wealthy and well-connected, especially inside retirement accounts. No lobbyists, no special connections, just the same rules for everyone. And that matters right now because America is in the middle of a massive AI and infrastructure build out, one that President Trump has made a national priority. It's not speculation or hype. It's real infrastructure built with real capital. Real money is moving into it. There's one AI-linked income opportunity I've been following due to our sponsors that's positioned to benefit directly from this shift, without forcing you to guess which tech stock is the one that's going to win. If you want to see how it works and why this policy change matters, learn more at www.oxfordplan.com. Because for the first time in a long time, Washington didn't just talk about helping the middle class, it actually moved the rules in their favor. So discover Washington's 2-tier system at www.oxfordplan.com. Again, that's www.oxfordplan.com. Go check it out. It's important. Thank you so much, everyone. And I will remember to subscribe over at Substack. My Substack is Outspoken. Subscribe if you possibly can. And go over to Daily Clout, subscribe there or donate. Independent journalism, interviews like this, and tools like Legisector or BillCam, which let you follow and change state and federal bills from your pocket. Costs money to keep this all running. We rely on you to do it. Thank you so much, everyone. Bless you all. I'll see you.